Have you ever had one of those days where you sit down to study or open up your laptop to work on a project, and within 5 minutes your brain is screaming, "I don't want to do this"? You close the book, you scroll your phone, you tell yourself you'll try again later, but later keeps getting pushed back until suddenly the day is gone. And when you finally ask yourself why you didn't do the thing you were supposed to, all you can come up with is, "I just didn't feel like it." If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. So many people between the ages of 16 and 35 struggle with this invisible wall that keeps us stuck. On the outside, it looks like laziness, procrastination, or lack of discipline. But deep down, it's usually something else. Sometimes it's fear of failure. Sometimes it's pressure from family. Sometimes it's not knowing if the path we're on even makes sense for us. And the truth is, if we don't figure out what's actually holding us back, we'll keep repeating the same patterns, making plans, breaking them, and then feeling guilty for not being good enough. That's why today, we're going to talk about one of the simplest yet most powerful exercises you can use to uncover the real reason behind your struggles, the 5 Whys drill. This method only takes about 10 minutes, but it works like peeling back layers of an onion. Each time you ask yourself why, you get closer to the root cause of the problem. And when you finally reach that root, it becomes so much easier to make a real change. So, imagine this: you're stuck in your studies, or you're dragging yourself through a job you don't care about. On the surface, the problem looks like "I don't feel motivated" or "I'm too lazy." But if you stop there, you'll never solve it. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline helps, but even discipline cracks if the foundation underneath is shaky. What the 5 Whys drill does is help you dig beneath the surface excuse and find the actual blockage, the one that your brain usually hides because it's uncomfortable to face. Here's how it works. You start with a problem, something that's bothering you. For example, "I can't focus on studying." That's your first statement. Then, you ask yourself, why? You write down the answer, even if it sounds silly or obvious. Maybe you say, "Because I get distracted too easily." Okay. That's one layer. Then you ask again, "Why do I get distracted so easily?" And maybe the answer is, "Because the subject feels boring and irrelevant to my life." That's layer 2. Now you keep going. "Why does it feel irrelevant to my life?" "Because I'm not even sure if this major is what I really want to do in the future." That's layer 3. Keep asking. "Why am I not sure this is what I want?" "Because I chose this path based on what my parents wanted, not what I really wanted." And suddenly, by the 4th or 5th why, you've uncovered something much deeper than "I can't focus." Now, instead of fighting yourself with guilt and forcing yourself to sit at the desk, you've discovered that the real blocker is a lack of personal alignment. The problem isn't just about focus, it's about direction. And that awareness can change everything, because now you know what conversation you need to have with yourself or even with your family. You're no longer battling distractions, you're addressing the real reason behind them. The beauty of the 5 Whys drill is that it doesn't take any special tools. You don't need an expensive journal, a complicated system, or hours of free time. All you need is 10 minutes, a piece of paper, and the courage to be honest with yourself. That honesty is the hardest part, because sometimes the truth that comes out is uncomfortable. But uncomfortable truths are the ones that set you free. Let's take another example. Imagine you're working at a job you hate, but you can't seem to quit. Every morning you wake up feeling drained, but when someone asks why you're still there, your automatic answer is, "Well, I need the money." But let's test that with the 5 Whys. Start with, "Why am I staying in this job?" Answer, "Because I need the money." Okay, that's surface level. Ask again, "Why do I need this money from this job?" Maybe you say, "Because I have bills to pay." Reasonable. But ask again, "Why do I think this is the only way to pay my bills?" Maybe you realize, "Because I'm afraid to try something new that might not work out." There's fear peeking out. Go deeper. Why am I afraid to try something new? Maybe the answer is, "Because I don't trust myself enough to succeed." And there it is, the real root is not money, but self-doubt. See how that works? At first, you're convinced the problem is practical: money, distractions, lack of motivation. But by peeling away the layers, you often discover the truth is emotional: fear, lack of confidence, lack of clarity, or pressure from someone else's expectations. When you know that, you can finally start solving the actual issue instead of patching the surface. And here's the thing: once you uncover the root cause, the problem itself doesn't feel so overwhelming anymore. Because now you're not fighting a shadow, you're facing the real opponent. And when you see it clearly, you can choose your strategy. If the root is fear of failure, maybe you build courage by starting with small risks. If the root is parental pressure, maybe you start an honest conversation and slowly carve your own path. If the root is self-doubt, maybe you work on building small wins that restore your confidence. But you wouldn't know which path to take unless you first asked why enough times to reveal the truth. So the next time you catch yourself stuck, staring at your desk, or dragging your feet on something important, don't just accept the excuse that pops up in your head. Take out your notebook, write down the problem, and start asking why. Don't stop at the first or second answer. Keep going until you hit the one that makes you pause, the one that feels heavy but real. That's the moment you've struck gold. That's the moment the 5 whys drill works its magic. And here's a little motivation to keep in mind: nobody figures out their direction instantly. Nobody wakes up at 16, 25, or even 30 and suddenly knows exactly what to do with their life. Feeling lost isn't a flaw, it's part of the process. But staying lost without asking deeper questions? That's what keeps you stuck. By practicing the 5 whys, you give yourself the gift of clarity, and clarity is what turns confusion into action. Now that we've seen how this exercise works in uncovering hidden fears and doubts, let's go a little deeper into how you can actually use it in your daily life, even when you feel completely unmotivated. Sometimes people hear about the 5 whys and think, okay, sounds interesting, but does it really work when you're exhausted, when you're burned out, or when you're staring at a mountain of assignments that just keep piling up? The truth is, that's exactly when it works best. Because in those moments, your brain loves to give you the easiest excuse possible. I'm just lazy. I'm not smart enough. This isn't for me. And while those thoughts might feel convincing, they're usually just surface-level answers your mind throws at you to avoid digging deeper. Let me give you a relatable scenario. Imagine you've got an important exam coming up, but every time you open your textbook, you end up scrolling on TikTok instead. On the outside, it looks like procrastination. But let's use the drill in real time. The problem is, I'm procrastinating instead of studying. Why? Because I feel overwhelmed by how much material there is. Why do I feel overwhelmed? Because I haven't broken the chapters into smaller, manageable chunks. Why haven't I broken them down? Because deep down, I'm afraid that even if I try, I won't do well enough. And why am I afraid of not doing well enough? Because I've tied my self-worth to grades, and failing would make me feel like a failure as a person. Now, notice what just happened. The problem started as I'm procrastinating. By the 4th or 5th why, you uncovered something much more personal, a fear of self-worth being attached to grades. That's not just about studying, that's about identity. And suddenly, instead of yelling at yourself to stop procrastinating, you realize the real work is separating your value as a human from a number on an exam. That shift doesn't just help you study for one test, it can change the way you approach school entirely. The key here is honesty. Because when you start doing this exercise, your first few answers might sound shallow or rehearsed, almost like excuses you've been repeating to yourself for years. I'm tired. I'm too busy. I don't know how. But if you sit with the question a little longer and force yourself to keep asking why, eventually the truth comes out. And when it does, you'll feel it. It's almost like a punch in the gut, or a light bulb switching on. It's uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Let's take another example, this time about career. Suppose you've been stuck at a job you don't love, and you keep telling yourself, I'll apply for something new soon. But months go by, and you don't. The problem is, I'm not applying for new jobs. Why? Because I feel like I don't have enough experience. Why do I feel I don't have enough experience? Because I compare myself to people on LinkedIn who seem more qualified. Why do I keep comparing myself? Because I believe other people are always ahead of me. And why do I believe that? Because somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that I'm always behind, no matter what I achieve. Now you see the shift. The blocker isn't really lack of experience, it's a mindset of comparison and insecurity. And if you don't address that, even if you do apply for a new job, the same fear will show up again. But once you uncover the root, you can start challenging that belief and reminding yourself that everyone's timeline is different, and progress isn't measured by comparing resumes. What's powerful about this drill is how fast it can reveal things that therapy or coaching might take months to uncover. Of course, it doesn't replace those deeper processes, but it gives you a starting point, a flashlight to shine into the dark corners of your mind. And when you know what's hiding there, you can stop blaming yourself for symptoms and start treating the real cause. Here's the part I want you to really hear. The 5 whys isn't about criticizing yourself. It's not about digging until you find a reason to beat yourself up. It's about compassion. It's about saying, hey, I know you're struggling on the surface, but let's see what's actually hurting underneath, so we can fix it with kindness instead of shame. Because shame keeps you stuck, but understanding sets you free. Let me walk you through a quick, practical way to do this tonight, if you want to give it a try. Grab a notebook. Right at the top, the problem is, and fill in the blank with whatever's bothering you most right now. Maybe it's, I can't wake up early, or I keep failing to finish assignments, or I don't feel motivated to look for a job. Then, underneath, write why, and jot down your first honest answer. Don't overthink it, just write. Then, look at that answer and ask again, why? Do it 5 times, even if you feel silly. By the 4th or 5th why, you'll usually hit something much deeper. Sometimes the answers come quickly, and sometimes they take a little sitting with. That's okay. The point isn't to force yourself, it's to be curious. And when the real answer appears, you'll know, because it won't feel like an excuse anymore. It will feel like the truth. Now, once you uncover the truth, that's when the real growth begins. Because knowing the root is step 1, but acting on it is step 2. If you discover your problem is fear of disappointing your parents, then maybe the action is having a small, brave conversation about your own dreams. If you discover it's self-doubt, maybe the action is starting with one small step that proves to yourself you're capable. If you discover it's burnout, maybe the action is giving yourself permission to rest without guilt, so you can come back stronger. The drill doesn't hand you all the answers on a silver platter, but it does hand you the most important key, awareness. And awareness is what allows you to choose a new path instead of repeating the same cycle again and again. So, the next time you're tempted to tell yourself, I'm just lazy or I'll never change, pause. Ask why. Then ask again. Keep asking until the answer feels real. You'll be surprised at what you discover about yourself, and even more surprised at how much lighter you feel once the truth is in the open. And once you've reached that place of clarity, the next step is learning how to use it as fuel, instead of letting it weigh you down. Because awareness without action can still keep you stuck, but awareness with action can turn your entire direction around. So here's the thing about uncovering your blockers with the 5 whys. Sometimes the answers feel empowering, and other times they might sting. You might realize that the reason you're not moving forward isn't laziness, but fear of failing. Or maybe it's not lack of ability, but the pressure of living up to someone else's expectations. And at first, that realization can feel heavy, almost like carrying an uncomfortable truth you'd rather not face. But here's the secret: once you see it, it loses its power. What was once this invisible weight pressing on your chest suddenly becomes something you can hold in your hands, examine, and decide what to do with. That shift alone changes everything. The best part is, you don't need to wait for some perfect moment to try this. You don't need to wait for motivation to strike, or for the new semester, or for Monday morning to come around. You can grab a pen right now, pause for 10 minutes, and dig into the heart of why you're stuck. That's what makes the 5 whys so powerful. It's immediate. It doesn't require years of figuring yourself out. It just asks you to go deeper than the first answer and trust that your real reason is waiting underneath. Now let's talk about what to actually do with the truth once you've found it. Because awareness is only the first step, and the next step is action. And here's where people often get overwhelmed, thinking they need to overhaul their entire life the second they uncover their blocker. But real change rarely happens through giant leaps. It happens through small, consistent steps. Let's say your drill revealed that your biggest blocker is fear of failure. Instead of telling yourself you have to become fearless overnight, try something smaller. Commit to doing one thing you've been avoiding, even if it's tiny. Maybe it's emailing a professor with a question, or applying to one job instead of 20, or posting one piece of your artwork online instead of waiting until you feel ready. Each small action chips away at the fear, and over time, the wall that once felt unbreakable starts to crumble. Or maybe your drill revealed that your real issue is pressure from family. That's a tough one, because the weight of expectations can feel crushing, especially when it comes from people you love. But even here, small steps matter. Maybe you're not ready to have a big confrontation, but you can start by writing down your own vision for your future, what you want, separate from what anyone else wants for you. That clarity gives you confidence, and little by little, you can start carving your own path. And if the drill revealed burnout, then your action step isn't doing more, it's resting with intention. It's giving yourself permission to recharge without guilt, knowing that rest is not wasted time. In fact, rest is often the most productive thing you can do, because it allows you to come back stronger. What I want you to remember is this: every time you do the 5 whys, you're training yourself to stop settling for surface-level excuses. You're rewiring your brain to dig deeper, to get curious instead of judgmental. That's a powerful habit, because it not only helps you with studying or career decisions, it helps you with every challenge life throws at you. Whether it's relationships, health, or personal growth, asking why enough times always leads to the truth. And let's be honest, nobody has it all figured out at 16, or 25, or even 35. Feeling lost doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Life isn't supposed to be a straight line where everything clicks into place instantly. It's messy, full of detours, and sometimes the path only becomes clear after you've stumbled a few times. But the people who make it through aren't always the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who keep asking better questions. They're the ones who dig deeper when everyone else stops at the surface. That's what you're doing when you practice this drill. You're refusing to accept "I'm lazy" or "I'm just not good enough" as the final answer. You're challenging your own brain to reveal the truth. And once you know the truth, you can choose a new direction. That's growth. That's progress. So here's my challenge for you. Tonight, before you go to bed, pick one thing that's been bothering you. Maybe it's "I can't focus on studying," or "I don't know what career to choose," or "I keep procrastinating." Write it down. Then, take yourself through the 5 whys. Don't stop until you get to the answer that makes you pause, the one that feels uncomfortably real. Sit with it. And then ask yourself, what's one small action I can take tomorrow that addresses this real issue? That's how you start breaking free from the cycle. And remember, you don't have to do this perfectly. Some days you'll uncover an answer and feel ready to act on it. Other days, you'll get stuck halfway through the whys and not know what to write. That's okay. The point isn't perfection, the point is practice. Every time you do it, you're building the muscle of self-awareness. And like any muscle, it grows stronger with repetition. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with this thought: if you wait until you feel motivated to start changing, you'll be waiting forever. Motivation isn't what gets you started, action is. And action becomes easier when you know the real reason you've been stuck. That's why this drill matters. It takes you from confusion to clarity, from frustration to understanding, and from paralysis to movement. So if you're feeling lost right now, take a deep breath. You're not broken. You don't need to have it all figured out today. All you need is the courage to ask yourself why a few times, and the patience to listen to the answer. Because once you do, you'll realize that the path forward was never as far away as it seemed. If this message resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. Tell me what blocker you uncovered, or what your fifth why revealed to you. I promise you, you're not alone. There are so many people who will read your story and feel less isolated because of it. And if you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you'll get more tools and motivation to keep moving forward. At the end of the day, remember this: you are stronger than you think, and you are more capable than you believe. The answers you're looking for aren't out there somewhere. They're already inside you, waiting to be uncovered. All it takes is the courage to keep asking why.